Lera was prepared for the presence of her mother-in-law in her life from the very beginning, but it turned out that it was one thing to be prepared for it, and quite another to face this scourge in all its inexorable power. "I would give anything for that," said Lera girlfriends, with whom once met to sit in a cafe and chat about life, "that I had a normal mother-in-law." But it began as if, all very innocent, and to be more precise, Tamara Stepanovna just wanted to take care of her son and his young family, as she herself said. And how could one, it would seem, cross a woman who had single-handedly raised her son after losing his father and her beloved husband in a terrible car crash? And what she did not sacrifice for him, starting with sleepless nights during Vadik's infancy, and ending with the fact that, in order not to bring a stranger into the house, Tamara Stepanovna never settled her personal life. And now my train has left, with resigned doom, and even, with a pinch of pride for the resultant self-sacrifice, once said mother-in-law, and strictly asked her friends and relatives not to try to introduce her to anyone else. Yes, everything started out well, and a great luck for the young cell of society could be called, perhaps, the fact that they knew each other not for the first year, sometimes crossed paths in the company of mutual friends, acquaintances in general were not quite strangers. And then, on some holiday on a small occasion, a big event happened. Vadim and Valeria looked at each other in a new way, and soon there was a romance, and then the wedding date was set. As for the flat issue, it was solved just brilliantly. It was not necessary to rent or wekachit, or in the mortgage to get involved. Vadim brought Lera in the flat, which he inherited from his grandfather. The bride and groom took out loans for the renovation, for the furnishings, planted money mother-in-law and Lera's parents. And then, family life began. But with one important nuance. The husband's mother lived literally in the same yard in the house opposite and, accordingly, could very well look after the young family. The spouses worked in their specialities. Vadim was a manager in a bank, and Lera, in her 26, with a tail, already headed a department where all sorts of designers worked in an advertising agency. His salary was a little higher, hers was a little lower, but she got bonuses more often. He was promised rapid promotion. She was often sent on business trips. And it is just the business trips. Oh, they were almost the main stumbling block in the relationship between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. The thing was that Tamara Stepanovna believed that to travel in them a married woman, it is inadmissible. She, for some reason unknown to her, was sure that ladies traveling on a business trip are inclined, not that to any kind of relationship, but yes, are at risk. Because alone and far away from home, relatives, friends turn out, because who knows what can happen to them there. What if they fall under someone's bad influence? And in general, is it not possible to refuse simply to not make your family nervous and to keep a decent reputation? Tamara Stepanovna, Valeria tried to tell her more than once. This is my job, and I don't chill out on business trips, I don't go to restaurants, and I fulfill important assignments of my superiors. In response to these and in general any arguments, mother-in-law hummed meaningfully, and she would say something like that. Snide and witty, but not insulting, and it would be all right if it was only her opinion. But for the last 6 months, Tamara Stepanovna had thoroughly worked her son on this subject, and now Lera, as they say, was ready to howl at the fact that Vadim began to treat her every trip with resentful suspicion. And after all, she never, not a single reason to him it would seem, did not give. And when Lera was on a business trip, he often called often, just demanded to report on each day, and then sympathetically dreary tone inquiring about whether someone is not bothering her, or he'd show up and he'd teach those who dared trespass on another man's wife a lesson. "No, darling, everything is fine," Lera said through her teeth, amazed at her own patience. "Yes, I remember when the return flight is. No, I won't oversleep. I set 3 alarm clocks. Yes, of course, I will not eat at the airport is incomprehensible. Yes, I do not lose the keys to the room, and right now in my pocket are in my pocket." Dissatisfaction of the mother-in-law business trip daughters-in-law was far from the first and not even her 10th claim. But when Valeria was once again sent to another city on company business, and even in the company of a handsome young man from her own department, that's when it began. "No, I'm going!" Lera was almost shouting and going round her husband in an arc, shuttling between the wardrobe and the open suitcase where she was stowing her things, And please stop talking nasty things about Alexandra. I know that you don't think so yourself, but only repeat it. Vadim. She suddenly stopped in the middle of the room with a peach blouse made of natural silk clutched frantically in her hands. I can't take it anymore. Well, tell me, have I ever given a reason to think badly of myself? And anyway, Alexander has a girlfriend. I mean, she's already his fiancée and pregnant. So, Vadim, I don't want to quarrel with you. Don't take offense at me, please. Lera's lips trembled nervously. If I could, I would stay and help your mother at the cottage with these courgettes. But I can't, you know, and I don't want to, she added a little more boldly. Anyway, please tell her not to. Please, I'm exhausted. It was not easy. To go on a business trip when your husband sulks on you absolutely childishly somehow, but at the same time, capable of not childish scandals. Let and with the help of his mother. Tamara Stepanovna, by the way, earlier had already told Lera everything that she thought about this trip, and even threatened that if the bride does not come to her senses, then it is not known what will happen next. My son is too kind to you, Tamara Stepanovna said with a tightening of her lips. It would not hurt to teach you a lesson. And so Valeria still left on a business trip, and on the way and in it, not once let herself into heavy reflections on how one person can coexist such opposite traits. After all, her mother-in-law was then quiet and kind, then noisy and a little hostile, then sympathetic, then thinking only about their own ridiculous principles. Okay, in the end, Valeria decided, Valerie, here I will return home and settle the issues with the claims of the mother-in-law on all occasions once and for all. Generally close these issues. But then, in general, when Lera came home, she was in for a big surprise. Literally at the doorstep, as they say. Or to put it more precisely, she found out that the locks on the doors had been changed. So it's your Vadik, her grandmother Masha, a neighbour on the stairwell, distinguished by a terrific ability to look out on the landing in time and sit on the bench at the entrance in the company of other pensioners, thanks to which she knew everything and about everyone. In the morning today the master came and changed the locks. Ah, I see. Lera was dumbfounded and thought hard. He says so. Continued to generously share information, Grandmother Masha. Well, so says, now it will not pass. Enough, he said. I'm fed up. She's wandering wherever she wants, he said, and I don't intend to put up with it. He was muttering under his nose, so angry. I thought maybe he'd started to drink white wine, but I thought he was sober. In Valeria's head, it was as if the pieces of the puzzle had clicked together. And the thing was that just last night she and Vadim quarrelled when they called, and he threatened her that if so constantly unknowingly continue to go wherever, then so an home native can lose his home. Only Lera could not imagine that her husband's words would be followed by such drastic actions. So you changed the locks, she muttered to herself under her nose, tapping her heels on the stairs. The young woman went downstairs. Here you are? How? Well, husband. Well, I won't leave it like that. Do you think that now I'll come running to you to beg for forgiveness and ask to go home? You won't. Already downstairs at the entrance, Valeria took a breath and dialed the number of her best friend since high school, Nadia. Hi, she said. Listen, here's the thing. In general. And can I come to you? Stay for a couple of days?